Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got your source stack here for June 12, 2025. And today, we're really plunging into a snapshot of the Bitcoin market.
That's right. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the key data points we found in these sources.
Okay.
You know, the price moves, technical signals, macro stuff, what institutions are doing, and, well, the community buzz.
All to give you a clear picture of the current landscape, just based on this material provided.
Exactly.
And the immediate context from the sources is, well, it's pretty interesting. Bitcoin's trading around $108,000 right now, showing a slight dip, maybe 1.6% in the last day or so, after getting close to its all-time high again.
Right.
But a really significant detail the material points out, Bitcoin's held above $100 K for 30 straight days. That's a first, according to these reports.
Yeah, and what the sources are noting is that even with that little pullback, that consolidation, they're describing a market with less volatility compared to past cycles.
Let's follow.
It suggests maybe a sense of maturity creeping in. It seems like the growing regulatory clarity and, you know, that sustained institutional interest we see detailed in the sources, it's sort of guiding the price action.
Okay, so let's unpack that technical picture the sources are painting. Reports indicate BTC hit some pretty big resistance near $110,500.
Yeah, $110 5Ks. And it saw rejection there, pulled back. So key support levels are now being watched around the 107K mark.
107K. And what are analysts quoted in the sources thinking if Bitcoin can, decisively break above that resistance point?
Well, the suggestion in the sources is that a move towards 120K could become a real possibility then.
Okay.
They also point out, though, daily trading volumes and open interest. That's the total number of derivative contracts out there. They're contracting.
Contracting volumes. What does that usually signal according to the sources?
According to them, yeah, it often signals some profit taking, maybe some consolidation after the recent run-up, people locking in gains.
All right, makes sense. So you got that technical setup playing out alongside the bigger macro and geopolitical factors discussed in the sources.
Exactly. They specifically mention elevated geopolitical tensions, particularly Middle East stuff.
And that's acting as a near-term drag on Bitcoin.
That's what the sources suggest, yeah. A near-term drag. But connecting this to the bigger picture, the sources also highlight how these tensions, while causing short-term pressure, are also seen by some analysts as maybe reinforcing Bitcoin's long-term value story. You know, the whole safe haven idea.
Interesting paradox there.
And the material also notes that softer than expected U.S. inflation data recently played a part in a subtle pullback across crypto prices generally.
Even while the broader underlying trend described is still bullish.
Correct. That's the picture painted. Short-term bumps, but underlying bullishness.
Okay, and speaking of bullish trends, let's touch on the institutional side. The sources really emphasize this. That strong rally in May, where Bitcoin almost hit 112K.
Yeah, a 10.3% gain.
The reports attribute a lot of that to growing interest from Bitcoin ETFs and corporate treasuries picking it up.
And this is where the sources get specific. They mention companies like MicroStrategy, just, continuing to stack sats, build their Bitcoin reserves.
Right.
What's particularly highlighted is GameStop raising $1.75 billion recently. And the reports hint, mind you, that some of that could be earmarked for BTC purchases.
Wow, okay. Illustrating that corporate trend.
Exactly. And analysts cited, like Roshan Robert at OKX and Brett Knobloch at Cantor Fitzgerald, they project sustained growth for roughly another year.
Another year of growth. But then?
Then, yeah, followed by a potential cool-down period foreseen for 2026. That's one projection noted.
That idea of a 2026 cooldown, well, it offers a different feel from some of the community buzz captured in the sources, right?
For sure. On places like Reddit, users are understandably celebrating that 30-day milestone above $100.
Yeah.
And the speculation there already heating up, aiming for, big numbers like $200.
And digging deeper into the analysts' views within the sources, some actually believe this current bull run phase might go on much longer than typical historical cycles.
Longer? How much longer?
Well, they cite predictions from some corners reaching towards figures like $1 million.
Wow. $1 million. In a later phase, presumably. That's a huge difference from the near-term target.
Exactly. A vast range. So based on all this material you provided, what's the takeaway? We've seen this really fascinating mix of signals. You've got short-term consolidation, a bit of a pullback, definitely influenced by those macro and geopolitical things.
Right, the headwinds.
But it's set against some really strong underlying trends the sources keep pointing to, like that sustained institutional interest, more regulatory clarity, and, positive technical signs if it breaks out.
Yeah, the outlook presented across the sources seems broadly bullish overall, especially if macro conditions stay, let's say, supportive.
And that potential target around 120K before year-end keeps coming up.
It's a commonly mentioned figure, yes. But, like you said, the reports balance this with those other projections, like that potential cool down mentioned for 2026.
Okay, so let's wrap up with this provocative thought pulled straight from the different viewpoints in the sources. Just consider the incredibly wide range of future possibilities being discussed right now in these reports.
Yeah.
You've got everything from a near-term target of $120,000 all the way to some analyst predictions hitting as high as $1 million in a later market phase.
It's quite the spectrum.
It really is. So what does this vast spectrum of expectations, all drawn from analysts and market watchers in the material, what does that tell you about the current state and maybe the potential future of Bitcoin? Definitely something to chew on as you digest these insights.